Miss Knoll, I know you're not the type to make things up, but I was up on that bridge and, well, there's no blood, no sign of a struggle. You sure you saw this?
How many times do I have to tell you?
Well, my men have been out here since daybreak. They've spoken to a lot of people, including the gallery manager here, and no one else saw anything.
I did.
All right, welcome to Highlander Rewatched, the podcast where every week we watch another episode of Highlander and discuss it in detail. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Keith.
Kyle. Eamon.
All right, and to start things off today, we're going to do a little bit of reader mail. We got this letter from Christoph V. And this is an interesting fact about actually the pilot episode, The Gathering, which stars Slan Kintz.
Slan the cat.
Slan the cat. And,
some wags call him that.
Yep. So in the scene where he is about to kill, like he's got the blade up to Tessa's neck.
Right.
According to Christoph, in France, the subtitles for this are actually not what he said. They like redid the story a little bit.
Huh.
And so Slan claims to have killed Duncan's former wife, Kahani.
Wow.
In this. So, like, the stakes are kind of raised. And it does give them a pass together, because we were wondering that. It's like, why does Slan, like, why is he after Duncan, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so this new French translation, like, has actually added some stuff to the story. It's not even a French translation. It's French subtitles, I guess, have interjected this.
Huh. That's
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, welcome to episode number 12. This episode title is Eyewitness. It first aired Saturday, February 6, 1993. The director of this episode was Ray Austin. We've seen him a couple times recently. He's done, of course, all those Zorro episodes. And recently we saw two of his episodes, which were Deadly Medicine and Revenge is Sweet. This was written by David Tynan. He's done a ton of Highlander. I think he's done, like, I don't know, 30 episodes. It's like a shit ton of episodes.
Wow.
He did The Sea Witch, and he also did Silk Stockings.
Very good.
Our guest stars are, well, I guess Amanda Weiss. I don't know if we can count her as a guest star, but she's back again.
No, goody.
And then Tom Butler's is Andrew Bolin. This guy's like another one of those, like, he's in everything. He's all over the place. X-Files, Stargate, Supernatural. He's got like 140 credits on IMDb. So.
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey more recently.
Snakes on a Plane.
Ooh.
There we go. Motherfucking snakes.
And then Tim Reed is back as Sergeant Sister Bennett.
Sergeant.
Sergeant. The IMDb episode description for this one is: Tessa witnesses the murder of a woman she met at an art exhibition, but the police don't believe her. She and Duncan take it upon themselves to investigate. Short and sweet.
Not like that last one.
Yeah.
So the episode starts with a very, very long scene that is played for big laughs. Richie rolls up in a Mercedes convertible, and we get to see 3 minutes of him failing to parallel park.
Yeah. It's just parallel parking.
And also there's this horrible music playing through this, like, and it's like weird, like jokey.
It sounds like it's like, I don't know, the bass, it's awful.
I was waiting for just yakety sax to start playing in the middle of this sequence. So Richie's also just a scumbag, because first off, he fails to parallel park and then just leaves his car planted sideways.
Yeah.
And just like looks at himself like, yeah, good job, Richie. And then he doesn't have money, so he puts a fake out of order sign on the parking meter.
Yep.
Yeah.
And some couple walks by and they're like, what is this guy doing?
The whole thing. He's also just wearing this ridiculous outfit. It's like a maroon suit, and this the whole
A flower vest. And like,
the whole thing is just played way up.
It looks like
it's a good cold open for the episode. It's like, all right, like, we're in it now.
It's so long.
I'm invested.
he's like parking his car for like 4 minutes.
Is there any other reason you tune into Highlander every Saturday afternoon?
There can be only one parking space.
So he is going to Tessa's art show. That's why he's parking. And it's the title is Tessa Noel Recent Works. That's the art show.
Well, her star is rising now that she's had a donut in the park, and
Yeah.
And presumably maybe at the Metro
at Municipal Stadium.
Yeah.
In See No Evil.
So Richie has arrived at Tessa's art show. And the first thing he does, he walks in, and there's just like a mirror just lonely, just standing there.
It's
and
just like leaning against the wall.
In front of the guest book.
Yeah. So he walks in, he's like, I'm one sharp dude. And he's just like checking himself out. It's like, okay, Richie.
And she's like, why don't you stop checking yourself out and sign the address book or the, what is it called?
Guest book.
Guest book.
Address
Aren't you an
book.
artist?
I don't know. It depends on who you ask.
So Richie checks himself out. He's one sharp dude.
Mm-hmm.
Tessa's like, oh, sign the guest book. So then we get to kind of like take in the art show.
Yep.
What a treat. So
very
I'm
beautiful.
not sure what is her art and what is not in this gallery. Like what's being featured, because she has like, I guess at this point we've established Tess has an art style, which is like foam, spray painted foam like sculptures, and so there's like just this like a metal zigzag bullshit thing.
Yep.
But then there's other
It's
stuff.
called Bacon in Flight.
Bacon in Flight. Then there's like the weirdest one I took note of. There's this painting that looks like Sunday Afternoon on the Island by like Seurat, and it's got that sort of like picturesque, like people in a park hanging out, but it's just like shirtless dudes that are like hunky, like they're all just like, we got muscles and we're in our bathing suits. That's the painting.
That was eye catching.
It was.
Like, you definitely noticed that.
And I guess that seems like that's something she could paint because she's with Dunk. Like, I don't know,
But she's not a painter. Like, that's what I was confused about. Like, that's not all her work, is it?
I hope. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We are then treated to Richie hitting on a woman.
Oh, man. And I don't know what fueled the decision, but we don't ever actually get to see it. Richie's just kind of running like a relay race. Like, help me talk about art, Tess. So, like, the exchange he has with Tess is actually kind of funny.
Yeah, because he's like, I'm an idiot. Like, I can't talk to her about art. Like, I'm scared. Like, so she gives him, like, pointers. And so he goes and talks to this woman and like is hitting it off with her.
Yeah. The thing, when Richie comes into this art gallery, he looks around at the women and says, I think I could get used to this. As he's leering at women.
Oh, so he comes back to Tess and he's like, I don't know what like this woman's talking about. Like she's eating it up, but she's like talking about like texture and color, and she's comparing this painting to like the neoclassical school, and it's like, what the fuck? Like, this woman's an idiot too. Like, no wonder you're hitting it off, because she's clearly a moron.
Because the painting is just splotches of color.
It's a color study. It's an abstract color study thing. It's like blue, black, and gray. It's like, I don't find it offensive in any way, but that's what it is. But the fact that she's like, oh, I'm comparing this to the neoclassical, like, the neoclassical school is like
Greek and Roman shit.
That's like, yeah, it's like it's emulating that style of stuff, and it's like, what the, like, of course why would you compare like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I'm comparing this painting to a banana. What do you think?
It's absurd. Ugh. So Richie says like, oh, she's comparing this to like the neoclassical thing. So he's like, well, what do I say? And Tess's response is to say, well, it's definitely not neoclassical. No shit, because it's a bunch of blobs. And then she's like, but it does have some abstract notions. Notions? It's a color study. It's just smudges of color. Like, again, I don't mean to say, like, I actually like this kind of art. Like, not to rag on this, but like, she's like, it has abstract notions. Like, no shit. All it is abstract. It's just a bunch of colors. It's not even like, there's no form or fuck. Tess, do you even know what art is? No wonder your shit looks the way it does.
Hang on, but she's trying to feed him things to say. I think it works in terms of go sound like you know anything.
But he's supposed to be talking to a woman that knows something about art.
But we've already proven that she doesn't know anything either. The whole point is they like each other and they're just saying things to try to impress each other.
I guess.
But somehow this works and they end up leaving and they go to make out.
Also, Richie in this scene, I was waiting for his heart to start popping out of his chest and his eyes to go, oh, like, that's the character he was playing. Like, he was like a wolf in one of those old cartoons.
Also, their little date is also, like, this scene is like another 3 minutes of them just like walking around, going to get pizza, smooching.
So the smooch happens, I paused it at 8 minutes and 32 seconds, and there is not a plot in sight.
So Richie and this mystery woman are on a date that lasts forever. Like, it's a whole montage. Like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Like, new character, maybe. They go to Al's Pizza. One of the things in this montage is they walk by, like, a beggar.
Yeah.
And he has his hat out. He's begging for money. And Richie takes the hat and he puts it on his head and dances around. And it's, like, gross. And she's, like, amused by it. She's like, oh, Richie, like, you're crazy. It's like, what the fuck is happening?
This is actually the subplot where Richie gets lice.
Richie gets lice and spills the beggar's change all over the street by putting his head
And
on.
steals from a homeless man. Yeah.
Also, he takes this art woman date up to the pizza shop,
Al's Pizza.
and it's the longest date in history.
It's really long.
So, back at the art show, for reasons unknown, this woman is very impressed with Tessa's art for some reason and wants to buy Bacon in Flight.
Yeah, so let's play this clip, and we'll get to hear what a person who has no taste thinks of this art. I don't know.
I don't know.
Morons. Pardon me?
The only thing they care about is that it fits their damn patio. They don't sense the depth, the intensity, the experience.
I'm not always so sure it's there.
It's there. You'd have to be blind not to see it. This is a work of life, of openness. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm tempted to buy it, just so some idiot won't use it to decorate his bathroom.
His bathroom.
This art goes in. This art belongs in a hotel lobby. Like,
Yeah.
That's the quality.
Or the lobby of a municipal stadium.
Go state sports team. Well, here's the other thing. So this is Tessa's artwork. And this person is saying they don't get the depth, they don't get the intensity. And Tessa's like, I'm not sure those things are present in this.
Right. She has no confidence in her
Yeah,
own
way
art.
to sell yourself.
I think she's just being humble.
That's too humble.
In the previous episode, she's like, I don't know if I love it or hate it, but
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
probably my best thing.
I guess it's consistent. I don't know.
So they kind of seemingly have a connection.
So Tess goes into the back of the gallery and she's looking out the window. And she sees this woman she met on the bridge arguing with some dude. Then she's distracted and she looks back and he's alone on the bridge looking into the water.
And she's convinced from this that she must have been thrown off.
Right. And she eventually gets the cops involved, but they don't believe her because there's no sign of anything, so she's kind of left to her own devices to kind of figure out what happened.
Right.
And they're kind of dicks about it.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
they don't need to be so mean. But for some reason, Bennett, Sergeant, Sergeant, is just like, well, I don't think you're the sort to make this up. It's like, which is it? Do you think she's drunk, or do you think
Yeah.
she's not the sort to make this up? I don't know.
Tess relates this to Duncan. And Duncan's like, oh, don't worry. Bennett's a good cop.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Duncan, who's been treating this cop like shit for like 3 episodes and who has like a long history of being distrustful of the police force, is all of a sudden like, Bennett will find it. He's a good cop.
Yeah.
But, who knows? Bennett has a full caseload chasing down people who vandalize Tessa's art. So
That's right.
So Richie has this idea. He's making like a sandwich during all of this. Which is
great.
in the background. So he has this idea like, oh, maybe this woman signed the guest book. Like, that's a clue. Like, we can find out who she was. So Duncan is like, good idea. Tess is like, Tess go, Richie go with her. Like, he has no part in this. Like, he's just like, you do it. Like, he just barks orders at them. My guess is, I think Richie leaves the sandwich. I think he just wanted the sandwich.
I mean, seeing the scene, it was a pretty good-looking sandwich.
Oh, it looked great. Richie knows how to do it.
But also, for having a good idea, there's like this moment of... Richie has this good idea, and then there's like this moment of stunned silence. And their response to him is like kind of angry. It's like, man, for a guy you're trying to compliment, you're being kind of dicks to him.
Good sandwich, Richie.
Yeah. So they find out that at the gallery that they look up in the book, and this woman's name is Ann Wheeler. And Richie's like, perfect, let's tell the cops. And Tessa's like, no. Like, I want to do this myself. And I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's the fact that she maybe distrusts them already. Like, because they're distrusting her. So she's like, well, screw
Fuck 'em.
them. Like, they're not really going to take this seriously.
Maybe she feels burned.
And then, like, she's like, also, let's not tell Mac. And, like, I want to handle this myself. And so I was kind of excited for that because I was like, oh, this is going to be a Tess-centric episode. Like, good, because we talked about last episode probably should have been a Tess episode. And it's like, well, this one's going to be. Spoiler alert, it's not. Like, Duncan gets involved shortly after because Tess can't handle it. So Tess and Richie are on the trail of this Ann Wheeler. So I guess they do some research and they go to this like old woman's house. Once again, we're at this house that I guess has been used like 5 times already. Yeah. They find out that this woman, Ann Wheeler, used to be a painter. They've moved around a bunch. Like every couple years they move. They've only been in Seacouver for 3 months. So she's new in town. But she also like leaves for days sometimes. So we're starting to get some backstory on like Ann Wheeler and the mysteries starting to unravel, or I don't know, we're getting something. Also, the lighting in this scene is atrocious. It is just like everything is pink and orange. Like, I don't think they had any lights there, and it was all just natural light. It was bad.
So back at the antique store, Duncan gets his immortal Spidey sense and, grabs his katana and then goes back into Tessa's workshop using like a Scooby-Doo secret passage. There's like a fake wall that he's able to go through. And when he gets in there, he sees this man, and they seem kind of stunned to see each other. And Duncan issues his, like, normal challenge with a super thick Scottish accent.
So they start getting into it, and they're like, who are you? He doesn't know. It's the guy from the bridge. We know that as viewers. And this guy ends up, like, dumping, like, some scaffolding and, like, a box of wires on Duncan.
Yeah, well, this fight's actually kind of fun, because this other guy who doesn't have his sword, he grabs like a pipe and they fight. And kind of the fighting gimmick in this episode is Duncan using his katana to cut things in half. Because at some point he like slices the pipe in half, and this guy manages to like dump some scaffolding on Duncan and below. But it's kind of like a fun physical fight, like using the environment. It was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Although brief.
So Randy then shows up to the antique store, and I thought this was actually a fun scene. Like, Duncan is explaining to a prospective customer the history of this shield.
Oh yeah, and there's bagpipe music playing.
Yeah, and like but Duncan's kind of like acting out this story, like how the shield was in battle, and I thought that was kind of fun because presumably either Duncan was there or Duncan knows someone that was there. Like, as Duncan, as a man of old age, has like the inside scoop on like the real legend of this shield. I thought it was a fun scene because it added something extra to Duncan being an antique dealer.
And it was like a neat story about, of course, a heroic Scotsman cutting his way through an Englishman's shield.
Yeah. Right.
Randy's
there trying to figure out like the scoop on why Tessa's name was on a police report, and she's asking Duncan all these questions.
She's like basically accusing him of something.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know what.
Weird.
Yeah.
So while Randy and Duncan are talking, you can see this dude's head in the bottom corner of the screen. His head's just like bouncing back and forth. So it's some sound guy. I don't know. He's in the shot. It's classy. What you don't do.
What you don't do. Stick your head in the shot while we're arguing with girl reporter.
So Randy ends up like interviewing Tess a little bit, and she's asking her like what the deal is with her, and Tess gives her some answers, and Randy's like, it sounds like you really knew her, and Tess is like, maybe I do. This whole episode, they're trying to draw some parallels between Tess and Ann Wheeler, and I'm not sure what those parallels are, and I'm not sure what Tess even thinks they are at this moment, because Ann's like, I used to be a painter, and I'm not anymore. So I'm not sure where Tess falls, like what she's reflecting on, what she's feeling like guilty about or worried about. Like, I don't know what's going on at this point.
Well, I think in Ann Wheeler's commentary on, Bacon in Flight or whatever, they like experience some kind of they have seemingly have an emotional moment. Like, Ann Wheeler seems to feel a certain kinship with Tess, which she responds to, and seems to indicate that they're of a kind. And I think we're supposed to think that Tessa has the same response and like genuinely feels a connection.
Kindred spirits.
Yeah, and as we learn, the man who Duncan fought and threw her off the bridge is immortal, and they're connected. So like they're even more similar because they're both artists who are tied to, these immortals who are part of a world they can never quite join. And they have kind of opposite responses to the whole thing.
That's true.
So Randy offers to help Tess figure this mystery out because Tess says you only help out if it gets you airtime. And
Which
Randy,
is true.
Yeah, but Randy wants to prove her wrong, I guess.
And meanwhile, Tess is wearing, once again, her Turok the Dinosaur
Yeah.
Hunter outfit.
She is.
I'm glad that made a comeback. So next we come to Bennett at the police station, and he is called into the chief's office. And then the chief turns around,
Bum,
and
bum,
who
bum.
is it? Chief Bad Guy.
Yep. He's the guy on the bridge and was in the studio.
What happened to Starch?
Yeah.
What happened to Kaminsky the Kaminsky?
Yeah,
Kaminsky, the
he was
Kaminsky.
Commissioner Kaminsky.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I don't know.
Major transitions in the Seacouver police force.
I mean, the turnover rate is very high.
Very high.
So that's like the big reveal at this point, which I think is an interesting component to this, that the police chief is an immortal.
Yeah.
Or we don't know he's an immortal, actually, at this point, do we?
We do, because we've already seen this guy. Duncan has fought
Oh,
him
that's
in
right,
the,
that's right, yes.
in the workshop.
That's right.
Right.
So Duncan gives this whole speech to Tess, because he's, like, on the fence about believing her, I guess. And he's like, believing and proving are two different things. And it's like, Duncan, all you do is you've had these hunches every episode.
Yeah.
That we just indulge like crazy.
Right.
And they're always right, surprisingly. And, like, you never have proof for anything. And now
Right.
he's giving Tess a bunch of shit
Yeah.
about it. He's like, oh, you got to prove
crazy.
it.
Well, and, like, he's right again.
Of
like,
course.
in this episode. Like, this trend just pisses me off that he always just has a feeling and he ends up right.
So Duncan tries to get them out of town. He's like, oh, there's like an antique show or auction. Like, I want you guys to go to in New York. And it turns out it's like, this is a ruse because he knows there's another immortal around. And they figured that out. Also, there's like a really funny, like, did anyone notice that he grabs Richie and like shoves him out of the way?
No.
Yeah. Richie is like cleaning stuff with a towel. And I can't tell if it's in the script or, I mean, it works in the scene. When Duncan starts making like his speech, he grabs this towel and just shoves Stan Kirsch like way out of the way. And my guess is just like, he's in his shot big time. And it's like, hey, like blocking man, like get over here. And he just shoves him away.
Get over here. Scorpion.
Oh, and Duncan mentions in this scene, he's like, you need to get out of town. This is the time of the gathering. Which I thought that was like stuck out to me because it's like they do not mention that much. I feel like that was in the Gathering episode, and they say that in Freefall. I think he tells Joan Jett like, "Well, the Gathering is here and now." Yeah, that term does not get thrown around much in the show, and so it showed up again.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here wondering what that is all about because they aren't really they aren't gathering
Right.
in one place.
No.
I guess Seacouver, some are gathering.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, people are supposed to be drawn to a place.
Right, and in the movie that's supposed to be
New York.
Right.
But
Well, we're not sure how much people are. I mean, like, how long does it take? Like,
are there mini gatherings? Is it
like semifinals?
yeah,
Mini
basically.
just
It's like, oh, do you survive your round robin to make it to the gathering?
Well-
In the big gathering in New York? Find out in March Madness.
How long has this police chief been the chief here? And with all the involvement Duncan has been having with the police, it like blows my mind that I haven't crossed paths at this point. Like Duncan MacLeod, who's been in all these police reports.
But also, just side note about police reports. Randy.
Side note about police reports.
So, Randy finds out about Tessa's involvement to this case because she read the police report. What the fuck?
Yeah.
How did she get that?
Well,
Who gave her a police report?
You can read police reports; they're public record. I've read police reports.
Not necessarily. Also, is there already a police report on this?
Well, they think they must have done something. They came out to the scene, so they have to report that they were there. That's state of
she is
protocol.
well liked by Bennett's
I don't
men.
think there are instantaneous. I'm not unconvinced that all police reports are public knowledge. First and second, I don't think it's like a blow by blow that you like the public is entitled to every individual, like a report on every individual action taken by police in real time.
Maybe not.
My point is, I don't know how this... I'm not convinced this report would even exist at this point. And that it does is a little confusing to me. And that she got her hand on it immediately, even stranger.
Well, it's like her cameraman friend who has access to anybody's medical records.
Yeah, also, if this information would be public knowledge, it would be redacted. You don't go giving away all this information. Because, by the way... If there's like a killer on the loose and you report in a police report that there's a witness, that witness is toast. So like Tess, if there was a police report, Tessa's name would not be part of it.
Right.
That's a good point.
So
I will, yeah.
that is my side note about police reports.
Very good side note.
This has been Police Report Side Note. So about police reports. No, when Duncan is trying to ferry Tess and Richie away, Tess says, "I'll never be barefoot and pregnant."
That's an expression.
Yeah, I just don't get how it applies to this.
Well, I guess she's like she
scenario.
doesn't want to be like a spectator to this. Like
she's not like a damsel. She wants to be involved.
Even though in half these episodes she's a damsel.
Yeah,
right.
She doesn't want to be.
She doesn't want to be. But of course, yeah. So Duncan needs to now help her, which is a little like. I was really hoping this could be a Tess episode where Tess. I mean, it'd be great if Duncan didn't believe her and she got to show him like wrong. Like it's like, no, I got it. Like I did it right.
Yeah.
Trust me for once or whatever. But no, he's got to help out. So they go back to this like old woman's house, who it turns out I guess is Ann Wheeler's aunt. And Duncan actually recognizes like the flower painting on the wall, and he's like, "Oh, I remember seeing this in Paris." And I thought that was a funny little joke because it's like, "Oh, well, you're far too young to have ever seen this, like in the 70s or whatever." Tess has the idea like there's a portrait they can look at.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, what about a snapshot or a picture?" And she's like, "Oh no."
and do you want to do a good impression of Tess?
God. Maybe she has a portrait.
That's right. She was a painter. There might be a portrait.
There might be a portrait.
A portrait.
You're saying that like Jim? Is it Jimmy?
Portrait
from
South Park? South Park? Yeah.
Yeah, he's French. He's a French. He's a 35-year-old French woman.
Portrait.
No, I mean that your impression of a 35-year-old French woman sounds like Jimmy.
I think it's the other way around.
Portrait.
Portrait.
So there is a portrait. And the lady brings it out, but then Duncan's like, "I don't think so." And there's a big hole cut in the portrait where the man's face would be. So that doesn't help.
Making this entire scene
pointless.
Unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is pointless.
They don't even get a clue from it.
Nope. So on their way back from this house, we see a mysterious figure putting together a sniper rifle over like a dirty sink. He's like piecing this thing together, and it turns out it's the chief. They reveal that very quickly. It's not
Chief bad guy.
Yep. And he's going to shoot Tess. But Duncan luckily gets the buzz, realizes what's going on, and he protects Tess. And he gets shot like 2 times.
So, what the fuck is this guy's plan? This is like the dumbest thing that ever could have been done, right? At this point in the story?
Lay it on me.
Yeah, that he tries to kill this guy. Because
he doesn't try to kill this guy.
Or, excuse me, that he tries to kill Tess. Because at this point, they don't know who he is. They know nothing about him. This guy has access to all the information the police has. So he knows that Tess can't put him at the scene. He already knows this information. So why on earth is he trying to kill her? He has absolutely no reason to try to kill her.
I don't know about that, because if she ever continues to be interviewed, she may see him and be like, "That's the guy." And eventually in the episode, Anne's body does wash up, and they do make cloth analysis, something.
Then he's already, well, first off, they would have had to compare it to the chief. They would have to have had reason to do that. And by the way, if they can give me your jacket, the chief can say, no. So he can guide this investigation away from himself if the body ever does, in fact, wash up. And he knows whether or not she can ID her because he's already got her statements. So all he's done by attempting to kill her is prove that at this point...
That she was a witness.
That she was a witness to something.
Right.
He confirms to the other police officers that she's correct. And that it's like a hyper-intense thing if someone's going to try to assassinate you with a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
So... The entire plan is incredibly absurd. Like, why on earth would you do this? You were perfectly protected until this moment.
Another funny thing is Richie's like, oh, why would another immortal shoot you?
He'd know it wouldn't hurt. Like, he couldn't kill you. It's like,
Yeah, well, maybe it'll slow him down so he can come over and chop his head off. I don't know.
Yeah, not to mention just the chance he'll get caught, because obviously the police get involved, and this is not exactly a private affair that he's...
Yeah, they kind of bungled this a little bit. Like, they set it up like it's a reveal here, because when Richie's like, oh, like, why would an immortal shoot you? And then the reveal is he's not after me, he's after Tess.
Right.
But by showing the police chief earlier, they messed that up. Like, these could have been what would have seemed to be two separate stories. Like, we know right from the get-go, because we see this dude's face, that when he shows up at Duncan's studio, that he's probably there for Tess. Like, we know that's the guy associated with the Tess storyline. If we didn't know his face, we could assume that these are two separate things going on. We wouldn't know that he was there for... Like, we'd think initially, oh, he's there for Duncan because he's immortal. And it'd be like, oh, misdirect. It actually was Tess because it's the same guy. And they kind of bungled that by showing the guy's face, because we're like, oh, we know that guy. Like, he's the one that's after Tess. So that's kind of a misstep here, I think.
Yeah.
If they had just revealed his face later and kept him mysterious, when Duncan says he's here for Tess, that would have been like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then they can reveal later that it's that guy. And it'd be like, ooh.
So they call the cops in after this shooting.
They cleverly conceal that Duncan has been shot by claiming that all the blood is from a nosebleed.
Right.
And then he's like all snarky. He's like, oh, those seatbelts, they save lives. Like,
Yeah. Oh, God. So they're going to take Tess to a safe house, but they're not going to tell Duncan where it is.
Which seems like a good idea to me.
Yeah.
yeah.
But Duncan fucks it up, sort of, by following
Well,
them.
he wants to follow
Yeah.
them, so he enlists Richie to help follow. So he asks Richie a really great question at this point. We'll play a clip here.
Yes.
Is that back of yours still haul ass?
Like Madonna's underwear. Why?
That's
Like
amazing.
Madonna's underwear.
That's
Why?
So they're going to follow this police convoy and find out where. And then at this point, we also start to, like, we wrap up the Randy storyline with Tess, which is like a weird mini story arc.
That
Yeah.
Randy gives up.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
just like, oh, you're right. I couldn't help you. Like, I fucking stink. Like,
Yeah, it's so dumb. It's just like, yep, my contract says I have to be in this episode.
Yeah, so she's out. No need to be in the episode. So Richie's in hot pursuit, but the cops spot Richie, and they're like, we got
Right.
somebody tailing us. And they end up kind of getting the jump on him. They, like, take him away. They're like, get him out of here.
Get Indiana Jones here. Out of here.
Yeah.
I'm just taking a joyride.
Yeah.
Which implies that you stole it,
Yeah.
by the way. I'm not aware of people taking joyrides with their own cars.
Well, it's just a joyful ride.
But then I thought this was kind of clever. Like, it turns out that was, like, a ruse. Like, Duncan knows how, like, Richie's a screw-up. And that was a diversion.
Yeah.
So Duncan's really following as well. And now they don't suspect anyone because they think they got Richie. So Duncan's able to kind of track where they take Tess.
Right. So he's kind of on a stakeout, I guess, making sure she's safe. And he sees the chief pull up to this house, and he's up to no good.
He plants a goddamn bomb. So this guy is like a real psycho.
Yeah.
Like he's not...
Well, he's going to take out everybody.
Yeah, he's going to
Yeah.
kill his loyal goons inside.
Right.
These loyal goons. You mean the law-abiding police officer?
Excuse
That
me.
serves
Loyal
Seacouver
goons.
with...
A.K.A. the Loyal Goons.
Sorry. He's going to kill Sergeant.
Oh, I just want to say, this goes back to your earlier point. Like, this man is in the ultimate position to get rid of her, like, smoothly, if he wanted to. Because he's the fucking chief of police. But no, he's just going to explode this whole house. It just seems...
Yeah, like he keeps on making something that could be very clean and quiet, very public, loud, and messy.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just like, rather than using his influence, he's using bombs.
Yeah.
I guess at this point, is the point here that he's trying to convince people that it's a mob hit?
I think so. Yeah.
Like, that seems like that, because they suspect that it was an organized crime thing when he tries to assassinate her with the rifle.
Right.
That's like the police theory. So that happens, I guess.
So, yeah, Duncan comes to save the day. He spots this bomb. He gets everybody out of the house. And...
Which, let's pause on that for a second.
Okay.
He sees the bomb, sees what time it is, and then gets out a stopwatch?
Yeah.
Well, I think he wants to just make sure he's got enough time. It's like there's a minute 30 left on that. I'll make sure like I don't dilly-dally.
But he's got a stopwatch?
I don't think it's a stopwatch. I think it's just a watch, like with a second hand.
He holds that in his hand and is like
It's
the
a
size
pocket
of
watch.
a fist.
He's a classy guy.
He does carry a pocket watch.
He has a
in an
pocket
earlier
watch.
episode.
I think he's just counting the seconds, and he's like, it's a watch, seconds.
And then he opens the door and he says, "You have exactly under 2 minutes."
Yeah.
Which would give me pause at the door too.
Yeah.
And then at which point he just assaults Sergeant hard. Like he doesn't just like push him out of the way. He hits him so hard that he's like
doubles
incapacitated.
over. Yeah.
And needs help to be removed.
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
whoa. But then sure enough, he is correct.
He's correct. The whole place explodes like crazy.
And Bennett's like, oh, wow, thanks.
Right. So Duncan tells Sister that this is like an inside job.
Right.
And he's like astonished by that. But Duncan also says he has to stop this guy because it's going to happen again and again. Like, this is why Duncan needs to, like, confront the chief of police. And it's like, why do you think this isn't an isolated incident? Like, he knows nothing about the confines of... I mean, like, he does know that he's trying to murder Tess, which is, like, obviously not kosher, for witnessing this murder. But he has no idea why this murder was ever committed in the first place. And he's like, this guy's going to do it over and over again.
Well,
It's
I interpreted that to mean he was going to keep trying to kill Tess.
Ah.
That he wasn't going to stop until he got her.
Well, that makes sense.
Which... there's reason to think that that's true.
Yeah, I would say that's true.
I think that was what that meant.
Okay.
Very good.
Redacted. Don't forget the sword.
So he goes and they like meet at a discreet location in front of like the Epcot ball.
Yeah,
What is that thing? Do we know what that is?
Oh, I know what it is. It's Science World.
It's cool.
It is cool. That's
Yeah.
like a big like Vancouver landmark. It's Science World. It's like here in Philly we've got like the Franklin Institute. It's similar like New York, the Natural History Museum. The not gyrosphere. What are they called?
Omniverse?
Nope.
Wait.
Geodesic Dome.
Oh, okay.
The Geodesic Dome was built in the '86 World's Fair.
Gotcha.
So that's I don't. It's a kind of iconic Vancouver landmark now. Looks
Very
like a cool
cool.
science museum too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he confronts Chief Andrew Ballin.
yeah, he's
now.
balling.
When the challenge has been made between Duncan and the Chief, they do this crazy cross dissolve where they cross dissolve between the Chief's face and what is the city lights reflected.
Oh, that was cool. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say cool against like the bay. And then there's a pan up, and what it does, it makes it look like there's a video effect of sparkly streamers.
Yeah, coming down the guy's face.
I was like, is he being beamed up? Yeah. Like, he's like energizing.
Over the Chief's face. Like, is he at a child's birthday party and like in an iMovie like plug-in like effect? It looked ridiculous, but it ends up just being this crazy side effect of this cross dissolve
With this geodesic dome.
Yeah.
Which, like, once they actually get to the second shot, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
panning up from the water
Oh,
to
yeah,
see
it's
it.
cool.
That's a cool shot.
Oh, yeah, so,
But the cross dissolve effect.
Yeah, it's strange.
Weird.
It's
Weird.
So they confront each other, and Duncan is like, why did you kill Anne? And then he uses this phrase that makes me feel uncomfortable, and this has been used many times in Highlander.
She was your woman.
Your woman. They always refer to people as your... Like, that is unsettling to me.
It's
and I
weird.
can't...
There's a lot of just, like, possessing of women in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I don't
I
like it.
had your woman.
I don't like it.
I hate her good.
Had her good. Naked blade.
And I don't like that Duncan said it either.
Yeah.
So then we finally get to find out why the police chief like killed Anne, and it turns out that they used to be in love. He broke it off because she was old or something. Like, that's
Yeah.
unclear, and I'll get into that in a minute.
Oh, boy.
But that she was like so like enthralled with him and in love with him that if he didn't take her back, she was going to expose him and all immortals to like the public. That was like the threat.
Right.
And presumably she's been making this threat for like a while because it's almost an empty threat at this point because she's
Yeah.
been pursuing him for years. So I don't know. It does give me pause. It's like, well, like he didn't have no reason to kill her. Like,
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, that's a big risk.
It's not Duncan wouldn't have handled it that way.
No.
But this guy does not seem like evil.
Yeah, well, he is evil, though, because he
Well,
tries
he
to
tries to
murder.
kill Tess,
he tries to
but-
kill Tess for no reason with his own guys inside. He's evil.
All right.
Like, I agree that killing her is an evil, but perhaps like
The stakes are high for
him.
for all the immortals in this scenario, and Duncan
Right.
doesn't seem to know that.
Right.
Yeah, like I agree. If all we were assessing was him killing this girl, like there would be a moral gray area. But his subsequent responses, especially in light of the fact that they were completely unnecessary,
Yeah.
prove that this guy is genuinely a scumbag.
Yep.
Two things. I guess he could have just bit the bullet and gone back with her, like early on, and just dealt with it because
Yeah,
he's got time to kill, so to speak.
Right.
But also, she never struck me as old, like
Yeah.
like ever. She seemed like his peer, and I was just like, why is he dumping her? Like,
well, maybe they just
fell up, like grew out of
people
love.
just dump
Yeah.
each other.
I
Sometimes.
got the impression it was because she was old. I guess I'm just surprised. She didn't seem that old, and I guess I'm surprised that he like let her go. But I guess there's this parallel being drawn between maybe her and Tess. And is Tess worried? Like this is another one of her like artistic parallels. Like they have a lot in common. Like is she worried Duncan will leave her because he's fallen out of love, or there's reasons he doesn't love her because she's gotten old, but she'll still be in love with Duncan. Like they're not on equal footing necessarily. Like they're not on this journey of aging together.
Right. I mean, that's an interesting parallel. I mean, the thing about that is, I mean, it could be a parallel for us, the viewer, but Tess doesn't know from the get-go that this woman's dating an immortal. So,
No, but the parallels build throughout the episode.
Sure.
Like they have an initial parallel in like their love of art, and it just kind of grows as you learn more about her.
right.
Because obviously they're both kind of wildly devoted to an immortal. So this was a question I had. Duncan, right before they start fighting, Chief Bad Guy says, "I wasn't going to come for you yet, McLeod." So are we then to think that he knew about McLeod the entire time?
Yeah.
And like
Maybe.
had a plan to eventually dispatch him? The reason I ask is because he seems genuinely surprised when he bumps into McLeod the very first time. And
Right.
he also doesn't have a sword, which is why they fight with that pipe.
right.
Right.
So if McLeod was on his radar the entire time, why did he go there unarmed? Like he should have known he was going to bump into Duncan there.
Especially at some place called like McLeod's Antique
Yeah.
Store.
Yeah, like he should have been tracking this situation from the beginning and maybe used his police connections to help him take care of it, because for some reason he doesn't.
Right.
So they get in a big sword fight.
When they start fighting, I feel like the actor playing Chief Bad Guy is like flinchy and not very good. Then a stunt double definitely takes over, and the fight gets awesome.
I was going to say, I do know they had, like, it was a short shooting schedule for this. Like, they didn't have much time to shoot this fight, so that could very well be part of it.
The thing that's coolest about this scene is like the lighting.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of in this warehouse-looking effect with the geodesic dome above them. And to me, it was really reminiscent of like the first movie, the final fight between Connor and the Kurgan, where they're like with this backlit kind of blue light, only here it's red.
Yeah.
It was a pretty cool effect.
No, it was
Yeah.
cool.
And it definitely
liked it.
conceals the
Yeah.
existence of a stunt double
Right.
very cleanly.
Yeah, everyone's silhouetted.
And like there are some those like cool moves. Like it looks like they knew what they were doing.
Yeah,
I
it looks
liked
good.
It. Yeah.
I really like when they do the wide shots, and apparently, like, again, they didn't have time to film wide shots for the fight. That's why all the shots are, like, kind of strangely, like, below them, kind
Yeah.
of shooting up at the dome, so you can at least see that it's there. They didn't have time to do that. Then they took, like, a second unit out afterwards and just shot some wide shots. And so all you see are, like, sparks, which are just added effects. But I think that looks awesome, because it's just black. You see the city in the background, and then you just see the sword sparks. I thought it was really great.
So Duncan wins. Spoiler alert.
His like final stroke cutting Chief Bad Guy's head off is like pretty awesome. Like, and it's really final. Like he just does it, which we haven't really seen much of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the end of a sentence.
Yeah.
He's really hits
Yep.
it hard. It's pretty cool.
But yeah, it's a cool quickening. It's cool that they incorporate the dome into everything.
Yeah.
Like the lights are all exploding. And also, little behind the scenes on this, all that quickening stuff was shot by the second unit. And like the stuff where they chop down, like Duncan once again chops in half the lamppost.
Posts, yeah, there was a
Yeah.
lot of that.
And all these lights explode. A lot of that was like real practical effects, like not added afterwards. But there were like 7 or 8 cars parked along the roadway right there by the Science World. Their windshields all got fucked up, and so they
wow.
had to pay to get everyone's windshields replaced.
Jeez.
Because it had like bits of glass and metal and stuff in it. Because I guess everyone on the set had like masks and suits and stuff on to protect themselves.
Wow.
I thought that was interesting. So let's talk about the ending of this. So that's like the end of the plot. Now we just wrap it up. Sergeant, sister is like, oh, it turns out the chief was in it the whole time. And
Think you know a guy.
Yep. And so Tess jokes about like, "Oh, I'll leave you first, Duncan," which is like, okay. Like, but then they just start talking about coffee.
Yeah.
And this is crazy. Like, it seemed this is all ad-libbed, and they're just like, "Yeah, you guys need to like kiss and talk about coffee."
Yeah.
And I should have gotten this clip. Like, they just go on and on. It's just like,
Do you want the
like
coffee?
coffee.
do you
I'll
want
make
coffee?
the coffee.
Oh, is a coffee I'm missing? Oh, I love coffee. Let's make coffee. I will. I thought you were going to make coffee. I love coffee. And, like, they're just, like, pecking at each other.
Yeah.
It's just like, what
And-
the fuck?
And then they like go into the bedroom, and he's like, "Let's make some coffee."
Yeah, and she, like, giggles. She's like, Duncan. It's like, is coffee a euphemism that I'm familiar with?
It's a special Seacouver.
Yeah, it's a
Kind of innuendo.
Seacouver slang.
So before we move on too far from like the sergeant, sister, sergeant,
Sergeant, sister, sergeant,
so he then really unpacks, like he provides an epilogue to this whole thing, and is like, "Hey, we opened his car, and then we found fibers that match to the girl to Ann Wheeler, and we found a high-powered rifle in his trunk, and like forensics came back with this and this." It's like, whoa, first off, your forensic lab is fast. If they're getting this stuff done like the next day or whatever it is. And they managed to take care of that. And it's like all this forensic work, all this looking into it. This dude was decapitated, and you did none of that work. None of that work towards figuring out who murdered the chief of police.
Chief of police,
And maybe there's like some scandal that this guy was like not a good guy, but that gives you even more incentive to solve the crime. And they're just like, "Yeah, by the way, you were right. Let's not think at all about,
Duncan, you
about
were
the
right.
dead guy."
Now let's go back into your antique shop and look at all your swords.
Yeah. No evidence here.
Yeah.
Just another one of those things where it's like the police thing just needs to go away, because it just like hangs a lantern on the absurdity of like trying to include them in the story in a half measure.
Yeah.
So here's a question I just kind of wanted to pose generally. This is the second time a leader of police has been an immortal villain, and Duncan seems to imply that that is a great idea for some reason. That like, oh, it must be great being a
Because he can be
police
first
sheriff.
on the scene, and like, there's no questions asked.
Right.
Yeah. I guess just generally, is this actually a good idea? Neither of the two villains have actually used this to great effect
Well,
in
I
the
mean,
game.
The first one did. We still don't remember his name.
Sheriff
Bad Guy was
Yeah.
what we would call him. But I mean, he pinned the murder on somebody else. So that's in a way he used it to his advantage.
His plan wasn't going to work absent Duncan's intervention. He had to arrange for a bunch of rednecks to lynch the guy, like independent of his influence as a sheriff. Also, you're also an incredibly public person whose activities are going to be more scrutinized. Like the chief of police, I don't know how big Seacouver is, but like the chief of police is like a major player in city politics.
And if he wants
no
to,
matter where you are.
Yeah, and if he wants to have a long career, I mean, you're going to be on TV news, you're going to be in the papers. I mean, after a few years, somebody's going to be like, "Hey, this person isn't getting older."
and you're going to have to like abandon your post and leave behind this massive paper trail. Like in an era before the internet where like now maybe it's not as terrible idea just because everyone leaves like this crazy digital footprint. And this is still a time where like if you kind of want to vanish, you really can. But if you need to reinvent yourself, but there's like a picture like front and center on like the Stevenson Times or like or like the Seacouver Inquirer, you're gonna have a pretty hard time erasing your former life. Like this is gonna create problems for you, and it's gonna make it really easy for other immortals to find you. Because, like, if they just happen to be passing through town and crack open a newspaper, like, you're fucked. So, I don't know. Maybe we can have a poll. Is it a good idea to be a police chief?
Or what we should...
or even a public figure of any stroke.
That's a good poll. And we should also ask, like, what's the best immortal job?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
What is the best immortal?
I like Antique Dealer's a fun one, I think.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
smart.
Yeah.
And it's also just a clever use of the thing. It was like a nice carryover too from the movie. I don't know. Working anywhere with a meat grinder.
So I do have the Watcher Chronicle on Andrew Ballin. It says he was born in 1911 in Brooklyn and died in 1944 in World War II. I just wanted to read this Watcher Chronicle because, again, if you buy into like the fantasy of what these Watcher Chronicles are, these are supposed to be written by Watchers in the field. These are like official records. Also, unbeknownst to the population of Earth, perhaps eventually will be the most important history ever written. Like the fate of mankind might be in the balance here. And this is the sort of stuff being written. So this is the entry for Andrew Ballin. He made a good cop. First in New York in the 50s as Andrew Halt, then a generation later in Seacouver as Andrew Ballin. He was a damn fine detective. His problem was he just never quite figured out women. In the 1960s and 70s, he and artist Ann Wheeler were hot. Her work was the toast of Paris. They moved in all the right circles. But then Ann got old, and Halt thought it might be time to trade her in for a newer model. He didn't count on how much Ann really loved him. Ann wasn't willing to let him go, so he had to kill her. Mistake number one. He hadn't reckoned on McLeod's woman, Tessa, seeing him do it, or how determined she would be to get to the truth. So he tried to kill her. Mistake number two. Then he tried to take on McLeod. 3 strikes, and he was out.
Who wrote this? Raymond Chandler? Like, Philip Marlowe's narrating this. This is weird.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, my God.
Oh, and before I mentioned something about her being old. This must be where
that's where you
This
got
is
that,
where I
yeah.
read it. So, I mean, I don't know if this stuff is really counts as canon. If we want to include it. I mean, I don't know.
I'm not sure either. It's a fine idea that an immortal, especially considering how kind of cavalier they are with women's feelings in this show, like that this guy would do that.
Yeah.
But it is, I don't think it's present in the episode itself.
No.
But then the other thing that's astonishing is this writing style, again, is McLeod's woman. Like, this possessive thing. Like, I don't know who actually wrote the Watcher Chronicles. Actually, somebody out there let us know. I'm curious who put these together. Like, was it the people in the writer's room, the producers? I'm sure a lot of people had their hands in this. But, like, using the term McLeod's woman just echoes all this weird, possessive woman stuff.
And it's also, like, so kind of cutesy, like, the tone of all this stuff. Like, wasn't the Joan Jett Watcher Chronicle, like, you look a bitch in the dictionary or whatever
And you'll find her picture, and it's like, strike one, strike two, you're out! It's like, your head's chopped off. Like, stop with the baseball analogy.
Isn't that how baseball works?
Yeah, that is right. Play baseball. Strike 1, 2, and then 3, and then you pull a sword out of a bat, chop someone's head off.
You're out.
And that's how the game was won.
Naked blade to naked blade. That was Babe Ruth who said that, right?
Yeah.
At this point in the series, we've done, this is our 12th episode?
Number 12, halfway
12.
through. This is the midpoint.
Yeah, so since it's the midpoint, I thought it'd be fun to do a quick kind of quickening roundup.
Quickening.
Whoop. To see, just kind of track Duncan's power level, to see when it gets over 9,000. So at this point, and if I'm missing any, let me know. He's got Slan the Cat. He's got Sheriff Bad Guy, whose name I don't think I ever dedicated to memory.
Nope.
He's got Caleb Cole, the Beastmaster. And question mark, I think that means he's got Carl as well.
I've been wondering how that all works. And
Yeah.
we can discuss this a little bit later when we discuss like Endgame and stuff. But because in that movie they really talk about these power levels, like how many people you've killed, and it would seem like it would be exponential if you get everybody that comes with that. Like,
well, that makes sense to me just in terms of it all collapsing in on one person.
Right.
That like eventually it's all consolidated in one person.
so if you know that Beastmaster killed Carl, we can count it as 2.
Right. So I think that's probably
And of course,
safe to
Slan
say.
has killed other people, but we don't know what those are.
Yeah,
so.
I'm just doing the confirmed.
This is the bare minimum.
Yeah. So we've got Alexei, Comrade Stalin.
That's right.
He got Wall Street Walter Reinhardt.
Street Walter Ryan.
You got Mad Marcus in the 1920s, who presumably has a lot of credits to his name.
He must have a ton.
Because he's like a gajillion years old, and he just got Andrew Ballin.
Ballin'.
So, by my count now, we've got 8 confirmed for Duncan. Am I missing anybody?
I think that sounds right.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
I'm trying to think if there's any others.
7.5, because do we do confirm that he gets Carl or not? I'm trying to remember back now to Mountain Men. That Caleb Cole killed Carl.
It's really implied, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm comfortable saying he's definitely got 8 at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, and we can add a 9th, because he does kill Sheriff Bad Guy, who killed Desiree.
Oh, right. Very good.
Good call.
Sweet count, guys.
Quickening count.
Oh, also, there was no fucking flashback in this episode. This is the first time there was an immortal in the episode, and they decided not to have a flashback.
True, though this is not the first time there's been an episode with flashbacks that didn't involve the ultimate villain, right?
Flashbacks in this episode?
Sorry, in what I meant to say is in the episode with Innocent Man with Sheriff Bad Guy, the flashbacks involve Desiree. They don't involve Sheriff Bad Guy.
True,
so,
but at least there was a flashback. In this one, we get nothing.
No flashback.
And they had an opportunity for 2. Something with Duncan, something with Chief.
Yeah, kind of a bummer. Do you think that detracts from this episode?
I think a lot of stuff detracts from this episode.
Yeah, all things considered, though, it at least moved. Yeah. There were some cool shots and interesting things. I was pretty entertained by this.
This is another episode that had a lot of groundwork again for stuff that just doesn't get explored more.
Right.
And I think as we keep watching the show, they figure that out, and it's it's better to explore these smaller details, like what's it like to love and lose and these sort of things, and deal with the emotional content rather than just this seems to just push the plot along in whatever way it's trying to do.
It's kind of in a workman-like way. I think what really should have happened, they've already done the chief of police thing with Sheriff Bad Guy. That should have just been a removed element of this thing. He should have just been an immortal. Because that also gives him a reason to get his hands dirty by himself. If he's just a non-policeman immortal. And then Randy McFarlane should have actually assisted in this in some way. Right? The police don't believe her. Duncan doesn't believe her. Randy McFarlane, maybe for self-interested reasons, because she wants to find a story, believes her, is able to provide some missing ingredient rather than just going, I give up, Tess.
Randy's story's arc is so short, but also so sad because it's she confirms what she is, and it's really sad. It's this was a chance for her to come maybe she wanted to do the story, got shot down, but is you know what, I'm still going to pursue it even though the camera's not around. I don't care.
That would have been nice. There was some emotional content there.
But they just kind of are yeah, you're right, I couldn't do it, I blew it, so meh.
Yeah.
All right, so that about does it for this episode. Make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher, or follow us on YouTube. All those sort of, we're out there on the internet. Just Google us and we're there. Like us on Facebook. That's the big one, where you can keep up to date on all the news, interact with other Highlander fans, that sort of stuff. You can also follow us on Twitter at The Rewatchers. Follow us on Instagram at Highlander Rewatched. And, of course, write us emails. Write us stuff you think about this episode, insights you have, and we're going to take some of the best ones and read them on air. And you can reach us at HighlanderRewatched@gmail.com. And, again, all this info is on our Facebook page, so follow us there. Also, make sure to rate us on iTunes. That really helps. Tell your friends about us. If you know Highlander fans, let them know. And share us
if you know people who aren't Highlander fans, let them know too.
Yeah.
We'd love to help bring some more people into this cool universe.
Yeah. All right. So thanks so much for listening. Make sure to join us next week. And we're finally getting into the second half of the first season, which is a big shift from the first half. And I'm really excited to get into this batch of episodes. You're going to notice a big change in the series. So next episode takes place in Paris, and it's Band of Brothers. So I'm really excited for that. I've been one of your hosts, Keith.
I'm Kyle.
Eamon.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, her star is rising now that she's had a donut in the park, and
yeah,
and presumably maybe at the Metro
at Municipal Stadium, in See No Evil. Maybe that's what the title was about. We were asking last week what the title was about. Maybe it's not seeing Tessa's art because it's not going to be at the fucking stadium.
Yeah,
and it is evil.
Oh
man, that'd be a crazy plot twist too. If her art summoned some demon from another dimension. Those donut holes. They out.
What? Boy.
Just saying, Panzer Davis, write us at Highlander Rewatched.
That'll get
so
the-
we can be script consultants because we have this idea. Tessa's art will summon a demon. Oh, maybe that was
The sword. Don't forget the sword.